Thank you so much for choosing to listen to Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. I'm Kristen Dees, the founder of Catalyst Consulting, a business consulting agency that is passionate about helping small businesses thrive. The goal of this podcast is to connect entrepreneurs with experts in a variety of industries that support small business owners in order to provide you with helpful tips, resources, and some entrepreneurship inspiration. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. My guest today is Amy Goober with Action Coach. I'm pretty excited to have you on. We've been connected for a little while, at least a couple of years, I think. We originally talked like 2 years ago. So excited to come full circle and have you on my podcast now.
Great. Thank you for inviting me. This is one of my absolute favorite things to be a guest on a podcast. It's the best. So thank you for including me.
Yeah, I love it. It's been a really fun project to have my podcast because I learned so many things. I was telling somebody, I'm like, I get to learn things for free, kind of like I feel like I'm cheating the system a little bit, but it's great. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about you as a human being. Like, where are you from? What are your hobbies? All those good things.
Yeah, I know we are human beings first, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I'm originally from New York, but I moved to Boston after college. So I live in Woburn, Massachusetts. Recently downsized, so I'm in this apartment. Sometimes people think it's a fake background, but this is the space we live in. Yeah, and I am married. Have been married for we just celebrated our 35th year anniversary, and I have 3 adult children. One lives in London, one lives in Boston, and one's starting her senior year in college nearby. So,
oh, nice. Very cool. Very cool. Congrats on 35 years too. That's good. It's hard work. Good job. Yeah. I've had 2 marriages, so I can tell you they're not always a good time. What do you do for fun? Like, what's your go-to like hobby?
It's so funny because I was filling out a form for something else today and they said, what do you do for fun? And it's fascinating to me because I work with a lot of women. I coach women, and this is a topic now, like women just are not having enough fun. So it's funny that you asked me and I had to answer this today, and it took me a minute, but my fun is really my people. You know, the most fun thing for me is to see my family. Like my daughter's coming in from London tonight. I mean, that, nothing better than that. And friends, I'm all about the social. I have, hobbies and things I like to do, but for me, it's the people.
Being social and around people that you are fond of. That's
Yes.
Good. What's a fun fact about you? Something random that maybe not everybody knows.
Well, if you ask me like my history, this may come out. So some people do know it, but they're very surprised by it. I started a cake bakery when I was 26 years old. So not many people that you have on can probably say that.
No, that's amazing.
That's funny. And I'm about to do a cake decorating project when we are done here, and I don't do it very often anymore. So it all kind of connects together.
Yeah, that's too funny. Oh, that's great. So what do you do on the work side of things? Like, how do you help entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah. So can I kind of give you like the rough timeline of sort of how I got to here? Because I think that kind of illustrates a little bit more. So I moved to Boston from college, went to Cornell and moved with my best girlfriend back in 1981. So I'm old, people, but, and looked for my first job. And in those days, basically the only jobs open to me were secretarial jobs. So I got my typing speed up to 40 words a minute, which was not easy. And I got hired as a secretary for an ad agency. And I did that for 7 years and really worked my way up to account executive. And then I opened a cake bakery at 26. I loved cake decorating and all that kind of thing. And people kept saying, you're so good at it, you should open a bakery. So boom, I did. No bakery experience and no business experience. So, I literally learned on the job. So that was wild. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. So I opened up a bakery just outside of Boston, and I had that for 7 years. And it was an amazing experience. It was like Cake Boss. We didn't do cookies or croissant, nothing. It was just big, amazingly unique decorated cakes.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, it was wild. We did huge events, corporate events, Boston related events for 1,000 people, serving cake at the aquarium. Lots of crazy, crazy stuff. And so I did that. And in the middle of those years, I got married and I had my first child, who's turning 30 next week, which is hard to believe. So I sold my bakery to 2 of my employees, and because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and they actually are still there today. And
Oh,
all these years later, I was 26 and I'm 63. So another 37 years. I was kind of crazy, 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 crazy. So they've been there and they've done a great job. So then I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years almost. I have 3 adult children, 30, 27, and 21. So, and I did a lot of ventures while I was home. I just didn't get paid for them. I raised money for playgrounds, in the whole town, went to town meeting, crazy things. And then I became a health coach 10 years ago in 2013 for a nationwide company, a program that I really believed in, and built a pretty big business doing that, training other coaches. And most recently, and how I think we connected was I became an action coach for women. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 2-3 years, developing programs and really trying to help women listen to their own voice and figure out what they want. Because mainly as women, we are in a serving role. I'm generalizing, but it's pretty common, right? We are, as our parents get older, we're serving our aging parents. We're taking care of children if we are a parent. We most likely are working. We may have a business. Your entrepreneur audience can relate, and you're maintaining a home usually, and laundry and what's for dinner. And so it's a lot of give. And I think women kind of, I don't know, they're out of practice with asking themselves what they want. So my goal really is to help people, women, like get in the driver's seat of their own life and learn how to get into action. So that's kind of the umbrella that I coach under.
yeah, I like that. That makes sense. Yeah, it's very easy to just become a taker carer of for everyone else. And I think that's also, I've recently seen a lot of this stuff come up. I use TikTok for therapy. But a lot of the conversation is that our worth is measured by all of the things that we do for other people in the society that we have been raised in thus far. So it's just kind of, because I know it's hard for me as an overachiever and former talented and gifted kid. It's hard for me to not associate my worth with the things that I accomplish in a day or a week or a month. Instead of just like being a human being, I'm like, oh, I have to get all these things done. And if I don't do this like more above and beyond than I need to do, then I feel like a failure, and it affects like my state of being. Cause I'm like, I just like was a normal person instead of trying to be everything for everyone and do all the things and stuff. So that definitely resonates with me for sure.
And you know what? That comes back to what you were saying originally about what do you do for fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, as women, we're wearing 100 hats. We're juggling 20 balls in the air. So it's very hard for us to do nothing or something that isn't on a checklist, right? So, because there's always something to do, so I think it's important for us to realize that. And I've coached women this way. It's okay to do nothing. It's okay to sit on the couch and watch a movie that has no great to-do list value, and I think we have to do that back for ourselves sometimes. And it's hard. Like you said, you're an overachiever and it's all very, very much on a list. And what about just being, that expression, a human doing versus a human being, look, you're incredibly accomplished and you've done great things and you want to do more great things, but you don't have to do it all day long. So,
yeah, I've gotten better at, I like to do nothing days on my weekends where I have no obligations and I can do nothing if I choose to. I usually end up doing, a little bit of like chores and stuff like that sometimes, but I've gotten better at doing it. But then still sometimes if I have like an actual, I have done nothing all day, it starts to like get in my head, like at the end of the night, I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's wasted a whole day. And I was like, but it was awesome. So
and
it's fine.
And you know what? Maybe that motivates you more the next day. Like that's why people need those days so that they get energized to do the next thing, get into gear on the next thing.
Yeah. And it's also easy for me to do because I'm single. I have a dog and a cat, and that it's easy for me to do that kind of stuff because I completely control my schedule and my calendar. So it's even harder, like in, past relationships and stuff, when you're living with somebody, you're married to somebody, you have kids, whatever, like all that stuff it makes everything so much more difficult to be able to have that space and that time too. So it's a challenging world we live in. So what are probably like the top 3 things that you think women or women business owners need to know about what you do? Maybe 3 most common things you help people with.
Yep. I would say, one of the most common things is getting a business going. I'm a multi-preneur and I've started many different businesses and ventures, let's call them. So I think a lot of women have an idea and they've got this idea and they just don't know what to do with it or if they can do something with it. And a lot of them have the voice in their head saying, well, you can't do that. You'll never be able to do that. We have these voices in our head echoing from when we were young, and a lot of them are not supportive. So I help women figure out, is the idea viable? Is it a good idea? All ideas are great ideas, but is it something that really can bring in income if that's what they want, and how to get it going? Because again, I think we all have ideas for businesses. I have ideas for businesses I haven't started yet, right? Because I'm busy with the I'm doing. So I think that's the first thing, is really just to help women figure out, hone their idea and see how to get started. Because a lot of times when you get started down one path with a new business, you really end up turning in a different way. And that's the business. But if you never started it, you wouldn't know, right? There's all this hesitation. What if it doesn't work? What will people think? What if I'm a failure? What if none of that? What if you just get started? Let's just see what happens if you get started. So that is one thing. The other thing is the planning of it. One of the women I worked with she's got a wonderful business. Her sister had breast cancer and, is fine, but my client wanted to create an all natural deodorant and body balm, all those things. And, she was like creating all these things, all the products out of her home, right? Because she was just getting started. So I helped her, what you would call scale it, but really more importantly was like, how could she make a go of this, right? She still had one kid at home, she was a wife so I think again, for a lot of women who are solopreneurs, it's, can you make a go of it? Are you doing it all yourself? My philosophy is in entrepreneurship that you should be working to the highest level of your ability, right? You should be doing the things only Kristen can do. And if there are other things that somebody else can do, maybe it's your editing or who knows what it is, right? Your social media, I don't know. Those are the really good things to hire and delegate so that you're growing your business and you're working at the Kristen level. That's philosophy. So, and a lot of women hesitate to delegate and they hesitate to hire, right? Because they say, well, I'm not making enough money to bring somebody else on, but right, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Maybe you need that person so you can do more and you can make more money. So, so I help with that kind of the scaling and the sort of, can you make a go of it, given the life that you have? And then I guess from a business coaching standpoint, I really want to see what they want to do with it. Right? Because if you don't I'm a big fan of short and long-term goals, both, right? So that you need that long-term goal. So you kind of have that carrot hanging out down the road, like, this is where I want to go with this. This is what I'd love to see myself as or doing. And then you have the short-term goals to get there. So I help my clients really set that up, so that they're working toward that long-term goal, but they're getting some great wins on the way and they're setting the foundation to be able to get there. And that long-term goal might change. Right. But if you don't have that vision, it's super hard to work long hours and give up parties and do all the things it takes to be an entrepreneur. If you don't have some great long image in your head of what it's going to be, I think it's super hard to do the do.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the stuff that keeps you motivated when things aren't always going exactly the way that you want them to. That's one of the things I help people a lot with too, is how to set effective goals long term, and then like tie them back in to like what that long-term vision is, to create like smaller, more actionable stuff. Because people do that all the time. Like I do it too. Like I have to like intentionally be like, okay, what is the actual goal?
Yeah.
Let's make it measurable. Because otherwise you forget to celebrate the wins, and then forget to acknowledge the progress that you've made, because you're just like, well, I haven't gotten there yet. Like that's where I'm going, and I'm not there yet. So I feel like a failure because I still have all this time and all this stuff to do. But yeah, it's huge.
But, and I think, again, I think a lot of people correlate success with money, right? So they want to be earning more and making more and doing more financially, which I'm all about that. Right. I mean, I always say we're not volunteering, right? It's a business. Yeah. But on the other hand, sometimes you need like a small win just to make yourself feel good. So I was on the phone with actually a coach this morning, and she was, struggling a little bit. And she just said, I just need like a win, and a small win. I just need something. And I put this program out and people aren't buying it. I said, why don't you do a free workshop? Do a free workshop. I said, I did a free workshop early this year. I had 40 women, and some of them then of course bought the program, but some didn't, but it was just, it was a win,
Mm-hmm.
all these women signing up, all these people, on Zoom, exchanging ideas, lots of great comments in the chat. That's a win, and it was easy. I had the content. So the wins aren't always about the money. The win is about like what makes you feel good. So you have the fuel to keep going. And I think that's
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah. Something I've been talking about a lot lately, just kind of in general, but like on social media and stuff too, is the concept of failure, because we try to like, there's like fail forward and learn from your mistakes and all that kind of stuff. But at some point this clicked for me that it's treating it like it's the scientific method instead of trying something and failing. You're testing a theory and then observing the results and then tweaking a couple things and then testing a new theory and like moving on. Like that's how scientists and inventors, like they're never like, oh my God, I didn't invent the perfect light bulb on the first try. Cause like, how can you? It's impossible. Like that's what research and development departments are for. Like you don't just get it right the first shot. So that's been like helping me too, because I've always thought I'm like, learn from your mistakes, like try new things. Like I'm an action person. Like I like to do things and then figure it out as I go, usually. But it's still like that concept gets in your head, especially when you haven't reached whatever your version of success is. And you're just like, I keep feeling like I'm not selling out my programs, or I'm not finished with this thing that I want to launch. And I want to do this thing too. Still, like all this stuff is happening. So yeah, that's been super helpful for me, is just the approach of it as like, that's the journey itself, it's the scientific method. You tried a thing, you learned something, you tried something different, hopefully, because otherwise you're doing it wrong. Don't keep doing the same thing. But yeah, and that seems to help too, is some of that like perspective and mindset stuff too, is that it's not all considered a failure, because you have to do something, like you said, to make it better the next time.
Well, right. And I think I always use the quote, perfect is the enemy of done. I mean, it doesn't mean like slap it together, but I could have spent 6 months creating a free workshop, but I didn't. I was like, okay, what I've got, what do people need? What is it going to work? And I did it, right. So I think that's part of it. It's just like, close your eyes and jump, right? Because that's how you learn. When I first started, my cornerstone program is called Drive Your Life, which is a 5-step process to get into action. And when I first started it, I was just starting it, right? So I said, oh, this is a 5-week program, DRIVE, Drive. 5-week program. Partway through, I was like, oh my God, this isn't long enough. So I said to the group, okay, you guys, now they knew it was my first program, right? These 8 women, they knew. Yeah, I mean, so I said, okay, you guys, I'm going to add like 4 more weeks. So we got into the next 4 weeks. And I was like to myself, I was like, oh my God, this is not long enough. Again, because roadblock, there's all these things. So it ended up becoming a longer program. But if I'd never done it, I wouldn't have known it, right? So you have to sometimes you have to open the parachute on the way down, and that's A-okay. And that's how you learn.
Yeah, I think I intentionally labeled a couple of my most recent things as beta tests, because that would get in my head sometimes too, where I'm like, I have all this stuff and I want to test it, but I want it to be perfect right. But once I labeled it a beta program, then it made it easier for me to be okay with things that weren't perfect the first time, because I've had similar experiences where I'm like, I think this should be this many weeks of information, and I'm like, it's either too much or not enough, or the sessions need to be longer or shorter. But like you said, it's the things that you don't know until you actually start really doing a thing, and then from there you can tweak the concept as you go.
And what's so interesting recently, because I was promoting the program again, but it's now I'm in the 15th round of it, which is crazy, but some of my best testimonials are from that first group of 8. Some of the best video testimonials, some of the best written ones, the ones that are on my website, happen to be from that first group of 8. So if I hadn't done that, I absolutely would not be on this, in this conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm really always trying to lift women up and encourage them and just say, give it a try, start going, start moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. It's super important. Hey, thanks for listening so far. I hope you've been enjoying this episode of Building Better Businesses. I just wanted to stop and share about our Business Foundations course that is now live on the Catalyst Consulting website. This course goes over Business Planning 101, so it goes over a template for business planning, as well as setting up your foundational habits and practices as a business owner. So we'll talk through some time management strategy, defining your version of success, and then also wrap up your business plan for you. If you want to check it out, hop over to bit.ly/pillar1. That's bit.ly/pillar-1. That link will be available for you in the show notes as well. the people that will say, oh, I wish I could, I can't believe you're so brave. And I was like, there's also a fine line between brave and stupid, but I'm like, you can do whatever you want. You just have to be willing to either make sacrifices or do something incredibly uncomfortable because it's so far out of your comfort zone. But like, once you conquer the thing, like everything else is so much less scary. Like I was just talking about this the other day about when I was 30, I quit my job and I traveled and I cashed out my 401k, got rid of all my stuff, traveled for a year. And like people thought I was absolutely insane. They're like, what are you going to do for money? I'm like, figure it out. Like, I got a 401k, cashed out some money. I'll do some freelance stuff along the way, whatever. If I need a job, I'll get one. And they're like, oh my God, like, do you speak Spanish? Because I went to Mexico first and I was like, I mean, I'll be fine. Also, I don't recommend traveling solo in Mexico without learning some Spanish first, but learned that the hard way. Some areas are fine, but Mexico City is not. But like I did it and like nothing scares me anymore. Like there's there's some things that I'm like, oh, that seems hard. I don't want to do that. But I travel solo a lot. I started my own business, like all this stuff that like, that was the most insane thing I could think of to do. And like now I've done that, I'm like, everything else is a piece of cake, like this is fine.
Well, that's great. Do the hard.
Do the hard. Yep.
I'm with you there. I also teach my clients to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these sayings out there, but it doesn't really help you when it's your gut that's like,
Yeah.
So get comfortable with it, acknowledge it. Oh my God, I'm scared, I'm nervous or whatever. And then, do it. So I'm like a big fan of like, what's the worst thing that can happen? That audience didn't love you. That client isn't gonna, what is, there just isn't really a worst case scenario in the kind of businesses, as long as we're not talking health and safety. Now that's different.
Right.
But, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And the other thing that I really believe is the things we regret in life are the things we don't do.
100%. Yes.
And I learned that lesson. I can tell you exactly when, 22 years ago, we had a little girl and 3 years later, a little boy. And then years went by and I was like, oh, I think I want to have a third child. And I was 40. I mean, and again, going back 20 years, doesn't sound old now to be pregnant, but then that 40, you were old. And I just didn't know. My husband and I back and forth, and I consulted a high risk obstetrician. And this man actually called me back, which was amazing. And I told him the age range and the whole thing. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And he just said, the things you regret in life are the things you don't do. So if this is something you're really passionate about and you really want to do, go with that. And I have this amazing 21-year-old daughter now, from that, of course, other factors led to the decision, but I think it's the same in business, right? You really want to do something. Do you want to be sitting here 5-10 years later saying, God, I wanted to go on that trip and I didn't go, but you did, Kristen, you went, or, even in business, I wanted to try this like sort of scary thing. I wanted to be a speaker. Go speak for, the Chamber of Commerce, go speak for the Rotary Club. They don't pay you, but you don't pay them, and go do it. I just think regret is more common on things you don't do, right? We rarely regret the things we've tried. I'd rather see someone try it and not do great or not enjoy it or not want to do it again than never try it.
Yeah, because it's like, then the answer to the question, which is, should I have X, Y, or Z? And like, that's the thing that I think people just obsess about. And then they never know the answer. It's like, do the thing, and then and then you can move on. It was either a really cool experience and you learned something new and now you have this whole other world open to you, or it was like, nope. But now I know I can fully close that door and like move on with something else. It's just like I feel like when you like get it and you're like obsessed about something or worried about regretting it, then it prevents you from making progress in other ways sometimes too, because you can't let go. At least I speak from my own experience. But yeah, living a life with no regrets has basically been that's my jam. Because life's too short and you never know.
Right.
Like do something. I mean, maybe don't go like I did full crazy, right? That was like a whole nother, but yeah, try the thing, start the business, ask for a promotion, whatever. The worst thing someone can say is no. Right.
Or, in entrepreneurship, it can be that idea didn't work, right?
Yeah.
Or your business didn't do as well that year, or I don't know. I'm trying to think what the big problems would be, so I'm not saying sink your life savings into something that's untested. I'm not saying that, But I'm saying do the testing, get the financing, go ahead and do it. So I really, really try to lift my clients up in that way, not with falseness, not just because, like I said, it's great. We get we have the discovery and the foundation and the testing and all these things so that, okay, we're pretty sure this is going to be a good go, and then go, Most of the best ideas started out as ideas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then, like you said, like having a good foundation in place of like, okay, like, let's do this. Here's a plan. And at some point, I think you were kind of talking about this before too, is the like analysis paralysis. There is no such thing as a perfect plan. And if all you do is plan, then you'll never actually like do the thing. Cause then it gets to the point where you're like, now I have to actually try this and see what's going to happen. I actually used to be an over planner because that's just one of my coping mechanisms is strategy. And so I used to just over plan things. And then at some point, one of my managers was like, "Hey, like you write these incredibly detailed, beautiful plans, super well thought out. And then like you never do them. So you never get the results." And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I kind of swung the pendulum a little bit, but yeah, have a good plan and strategy in place for sure. Cause I think it makes a difference. Intentional wins, I think, are better than accidental wins. It feels better, I think, to be like, I meant to do that. That was on purpose. I crushed it. It's great.
Yeah. And I think too, you don't know what you don't know. So better to plow forward and learn. When I started my bakery, I told you I knew nothing. I mean, I knew cake decorating. That's what I knew. And I, got this space that there was nothing there. Literally, they used to assemble newspapers there. There wasn't even a floor there. It was like wooden floorboards. I mean, it was nothing. And I had to create this whole kitchen. And I went to the commercial. I can't even imagine what these guys thought, but I marched myself with my ponytail, little 26-year-old, into the commercial bakery store on Washington Street in Boston, and I march in there and they say, "Hi, can we help you?" And I'm like, I hope so. And they said, what do you need? And I said, I'm creating a bakery. You tell me. I mean, I did not know anything, nothing. I mean, I thought the mixer was like the little stand mixer that sits on your counter. And they show me a mixer that I could have gotten in, I could have got it all. So anyway, so I just was very focused, but there was so much I didn't know, so much I didn't know. The health inspector, I mean, crazy stuff. So what? So now I look back and I talk about it instead of being in this interview saying, I really wanted to start a bakery. I just couldn't do it. And I think that's sort of what we were talking about.
Yeah. You did a crazy brave thing, especially too, like it's because you said, so this had to have been like in the mid 80s, right? Based on
it was 86.
Yeah. It's just wild to me because like how far we've come, like in that length of time too, to just have you like, especially as a young female, just like, I'm going to start a bakery. And they're like, okay, honey, like,
yeah. And we used to make these handmade icing flowers, edible flowers that look kind of like porcelain. This was just a thing that I learned how to do. And then we did. And so it ended up becoming a high-end cake. The space wasn't high end. I wasn't like high end in that way. I had my icing on the cake t-shirt on, I was not, but that's how it was. So people that were having weddings at the Ritz and the Four Seasons, those mothers and brides were attracted to the product. You know what I mean? It just happened. And I was in a sort of upscale neighborhood, but not in an upscale area at all. But long story short, the mother and the bride would come in for the appointment and we were in this like cute little spot. And I'm telling you, I had a ponytail and a t-shirt on. And the mother would say, I'd like to speak to the owner, and be like, hi. They just were like, you're the age of my daughter. They didn't have any faith in me. They didn't have really like the trust. And by the end of the 45-minute appointment, more often than not, they were saying, Amy, what do you think? What do you advise, Amy? What's your opinion? Because they realized I did know what I was talking about. I just didn't look like I did. So I don't know. That was sort of a little side trip, but it's interesting. And then you get faith in yourself by doing those things. You build confidence by being uncomfortable and sort of edging outside of what your normal is. That's how you gain confidence, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good, because that makes me think of, because I've been a people leader since I was 19, and I was younger than my employees for a very long time until I was in my mid to late 20s. I switched over to Best Buy. So like the average age of employees at Best Buy is significantly lower, but I looked young too. So I had a lot of that, until I was in my 30s, where people assumed that I was not in charge, or I looked super young. I didn't know what I was talking about. So to your point of, if you're the person that's supposed to be in charge, then you have to be in charge. And so like, you have to learn how to like present yourself in a confident way, like having tough conversations. I'm sure you've had similar types of things too in that experience where you're like, no, I am in charge though, but like, it's because I should be. So yeah, that's such an interesting perspective on that too. It's just, you had to be. So then you were, and now you have these skills of being able to be assertive probably and stand up for yourself in situations. And yeah, it's crazy. I love it. I just can't, it's so crazy. I'm just a little ponytail, Amy,
Oh yeah.
26 years old.
Oh yeah.
That's great. Good for you. No, that's awesome. Hey, thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to stop and share a very helpful legal resource for small business owners and entrepreneurs. Brittany Rattel, who was also a guest on this podcast, episode 8, I believe, if you want to go check it out. She has a ton of very helpful legal resources and templates on her website that entrepreneurs can take advantage of. She specializes in helping online content creators protect their digital content, and all of her resources are set up to help us with all of those things. So whether it's creating contacts to provide to your clients or to potential vendors, or just protecting your website with effective terms and conditions and privacy policies and that kind of thing, all kinds of options, very reasonable prices, and she always walks people through how to use her legal templates. She provides tutorials that go along with them to help you customize it to your specific business. The link for that is lddy.no/12luy, and that link is also in my show notes because those are a bunch of random letters that don't make sense. So when people are looking to work with someone like you, like in the coaching space, for their business, I'm sure you would probably agree too that this is a fairly oversaturated industry and sometimes people don't actually have qualifications. What do you recommend, or maybe what's your process for onboarding people to make sure that you're a good fit? Like, what are some questions that they could ask a potential coach to make sure that you know what you're talking about?
Yeah. And that's a great question. So, I offer a complimentary 30-minute call for anybody, whether it's business coaching or personal coaching or just someone who wants to talk to me. And I do that because, one of my internal goals is to help as many women as I can, right? So if in a 30-minute conversation, I can help somebody, check, like that counts. And I don't hold back. I don't like retain these ideas. I give suggestions and things. And in that 30-minute phone call, I think people really can get a sense of how I am and who I am and how I'm going to work with them and if they're comfortable. And what I say is at the end of, and then I offer a discovery session option that's independent of the next 6 sessions, because I don't want people to feel committed in an uncomfortable way. Like, I'm looking for people who are looking for me, so I'm not going to like tie people's hands behind them and say, well, you have to do this many. We do have a set of 6 sessions, but they can do a discovery call independently. And what I say to them during this call is, during our sessions, at the end of the session, whatever session it is, you should feel great, like you can, tackle the world, but like a little nervous, right? Like a little nervous about what the next step is. Because I've worked with coaches, right? Because coaches hire coaches. And if you're working with somebody that is too harsh or too heavy-handed, you will become immobilized because you'll say, oh, I can't do what they want. I can't do what I need. So that's my thing, is I really try to build people up, but with, with actual things, not just to say, you're great, like, let's talk about what you've done that makes you competent, confident, all these things. We go back and say, what are the other things you've done and how does that build? So I think you can learn a lot in a conversation with somebody. And as far as credentials go, I don't have an MBA. I my whole life I've thought of getting an MBA, and I look in the mirror and I say, I'm a multi-preneur. I've started and sold businesses. So, for me, my experience is my life experience. And again, that might not be for everyone. And that's why there's so many coaches out there, and, I love working with women who have not used a coach before, mainly because they don't realize how quickly they can accelerate when they have somebody guiding them or questioning them on what they want and what direction they want to go, right? Because a lot of solopreneurs just keep chugging along. You don't have that big picture view for yourself.
Yes.
So, right. So as far as questions people can ask, I like to listen to what they have to say. So, I think it's an individual thing. And I think people need to do that introductory call to really see, does this person have what they want? Are they comfortable? Will they feel challenged? And where are they going to go? I'm all about I'm not swishy. Like I'm all about, we're starting here and then you're going to get here. Right. Because otherwise you do all these sessions and you come away with pages of notes. And then what? Where did you really get to? So I try to be very structured and concrete in that way.
I like that. That makes me feel good. I would like to work with you, I'm sure. It's like structure. I think that's a good point too, is just if the person isn't willing to meet with you for free to discuss working with them on a paid basis, I feel like that's a red flag. There's a lot of people, I've seen a lot of conversation about this too, like online, where people are like, you should always charge for consultations. And I'm like, but that's like, I think if you're providing a service in the consultation, so if someone's like, Amy, I would like a strategy session with you and I would like to pay you for that time, that's different, where you're like, again, here, we're starting here and you're going to get a result at the end. But when you're getting to know somebody and trying to decide if you want to spend usually a decent amount of money to work with them, then that should be a free conversation. I think I just would never feel good about charging somebody for a session in which I'm trying to convince them to spend money with me. I'm like, I just don't. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. But no, I think that's good. Trust your gut, I think, too.
Yeah, and talk to a variety of people. And, the thing too is like, what have you got to lose? And I say this to my clients, they can work with me for 6 sessions. That's either 6 weeks or 12 weeks, right? They can do it every other week. They're absolutely going to move forward. There's just, there never has there been a situation where somebody at the end didn't say, wow, I can't believe how far I've come. So that's what they do. That we're not married, right? This isn't the ultimate, partnership. So I encourage people, if they feel good about it, to give it a try. It's always a little scary, right? It's scary when I hire someone to help me with anything I do. I have people that do work for me. I have a VA, web guy, I've got all these people. It's always scary to hire someone. But if you don't, then you're going to keep doing what you've been doing, and you're going to pretty much stay on the same trajectory you've been on. And if that's good, great, then you don't need somebody. But if you're looking for something different or a different idea or a different process, then it's important to bring somebody else in, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. You can only get so far in your own head. That's why coaches, therapists, counselors exist, because you can only convince yourself to be so different at any given moment. So yeah, it's a very important relationship, either mentorship or coaching or something along those lines, to help you get out of your own way sometimes and just be like, no, let me hold the crazy for you for a little while. And I'll be like, okay, we're going to move through this. It'll be okay. It's fine. It's great. Thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to stop and share one of my resources that I like to recommend to people. If you're looking for an invoicing system, FreshBooks is one of my go-to recommendations for people. It's pretty low cost. It's easy to start up. So for people that are just starting out with the need to invoice, it's a great resource to use up front, and it can scale as your business grows as well. They also offer bookkeeping and accounting software and services as a part of their pricing structure too. If you're interested in checking it out, their link is bit.ly/catalyst_FreshBooks, and the link will be in the show notes, of course, for you, just in case. But it's a quick, easy, and intuitive system to use if you're needing invoicing to send to clients or customers. So as an entrepreneur and business owner yourself, what advice would you give fellow business owners when it comes to running their businesses?
I mean, lots and lots and lots and lots of things. Right. I mean, I told you one thing before, the entrepreneur should be working to the highest level of his or her ability. I truly believe that. I truly believe in delegation. I truly believe in, hiring people to do the jobs that you don't need to do yourself. And for a lot of very control oriented people, that's hard to do, but you can't grow without that. You are binding yourself to where you're at if you don't scale and grow and hire. And I just think that's hugely, I will use the bakery as an example, right? When I started the bakery, I did everything, right? I did everything. And eventually I was like, I don't need to bake the cakes. So I hired a baker. And I was still doing everything else. It's like, well, I don't really need to put the icing on the cakes. I hired someone to do that. I was like, you know what? I bet there's people out there that can decorate cakes as well as I can, or better. So I hired them. And now I'm doing the market. And now I'm the face of the business. And now I'm going to the Four Seasons and saying, will you recommend us to do your wedding cakes, right? So I was able to grow this business. If I was in the back baking the cakes, I probably would have closed. So it's a matter of thinking big, but also, or bigger, I should say, but also seeing what are the tasks you're doing that somebody else could do as well or better. Even if it puts you in a hole initially, I think it's okay. So that's kind of one of my big things. The other thing is think big, think big, surprise yourself. I am a big fan of numbers. I absolutely think it's important to know what you're spending and what you're getting. I'm goal oriented because that's an action coach. So I love that too. And I think I was actually talking to somebody today about how do you promote what you're doing, right? And a lot of it is using the words of people who are looking for you. So if someone, in my case, it could be somebody who's overwhelmed or immobilized or those things, and using those words. So that's being approachable. I've done so many different things in the business world, and, I feel like I've done well at them. And I think it's just because I've been motivated, and also because I put myself in their shoes. What type of person would I want to speak to if I was XYZ? So it's developing that persona. I think that is so important. And also having I call it a roadmap, but having a game plan. So you're not just putting one foot in front of the other every day. Know what you want to do that quarter, the year, the quarter, the month, and then you can break it down. Because as you said earlier, it's really important for people like us to feel like we're checking things off and we're doing what we need to do. So the only way to do that is to chart it out.
Yeah.
With an eraser, with a way to erase it, so I had this idea for this quarter, and then this happened to me last year at the end of 2021, I came up with this idea. Well, that wasn't on my plan for 2022 initially. I came up with it in October. That wasn't on my plan, but I just changed my plan. I took the eraser out and I changed it because I thought I had a great idea. So you have to have some flexibility, but if you don't have a strategy and a game plan, I think it's very hard to not feel adrift.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, like game plan. I talk a lot about flexible structure or structured flexibility, depending on whatever one resonates more. Some people like one better than the other. But yeah, I think that's a part of that concept too, is have a plan, be consistent and disciplined, but also be willing to adjust and be flexible when the universe serves you up with something a random idea that you're like, oh, this is good. I like it. And as long as it's still aligned with all the other things you're trying to accomplish, then do the thing, but also still have a little bit of a plan.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. What about resources? And maybe this goes back to bakery days. What resources do you wish you had known about or taken advantage of at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, there weren't many, honestly. There were no computers. I know horror. I remember someone coming in and saying, "Do you want to put an ad on the internet?" I was like, "What are you talking about?"
What's the internet?
We hand wrote everything. So that we didn't have none of those resources. We were getting postcards printed at the printer and mailing them. No label. It was just, anyway.
You said it lick stamps too. We didn't have it was licking stamps and putting them on too.
There was no email. So we were doing mailings, but anyway, it makes me sound like I'm 100 years old. So what resources, all these women's networking groups. I belonged to a few, there was nothing like that. You had to literally call these places and say, can I meet with you? Can I drop samples off? That was then. Even now, I think we have so many resources now, so many things at our fingertips that we need to take advantage of. There was no community. There weren't a lot of other entrepreneurs around, all of that. I think that those resources are invaluable. And some people think it's a waste of time if you don't gain business from it. But I think having the community is what keeps a lot of people going. I really do.
Yeah. I agree. Surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because a lot of people who start businesses or entrepreneurs, whatever, their friends and family are not. And it becomes very, very difficult for them to keep going because everyone's like, just get a job. What are you talking about? Why are you working 100 hours a week on your little cake shop? And you're like, no, this is a real thing though. So if you're not around those kinds of people, I think it makes a difference and it makes it a lot harder. You're having to overcome your own mindset crap on top of everyone else around you projecting their stuff on you too. So yeah, I can't even describe networking is huge. Finding mentorship, having business besties where you can just call and be like, hey, Amy, I'm super stuck on this and I don't know what the deal is. Can you just can we talk for an hour and just I just need to get this out of my head. And those things are so invaluable. It's maybe you're not paying for my services, But the things that I've gained from all of the different like connections and stuff that I made, I always get something out of every single connection that I make from, it doesn't matter. It's like a random idea will pop into my head, or they'll be like, oh, did you know about this X? I just found this crazy helpful resource. And you're like, oh my God, I need that. That's super helpful. I know it's totally worth it. I think I could go on for hours about the benefits of networking. Building relationships specifically, though, it's like if you just go to like talk about your stuff and try to sell things, then it's not going to be beneficial. But if you go to try and build a community and make relationships with other people, then yeah, limitless for sure. So sorry, I like totally went on a little diatribe there. How can we support you, find you? What are you working on that you want people to know about?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So my website is my name, Amy Goober, Goober, amygoober.com. Everything is on there. Everything I know, everything I've done. This podcast will be on there. Everything is on there. And I mean, I do one-on-one coaching. We talked about that, business and personal. I was thinking as you were asking me, two things. I have a free offer on my website. Everybody has free offers, I know, but mine is very succinct. It's 5 steps to goal getting. Because as women, we're really good at goal setting. I mean, I can show you, but I won't, all my to-do lists. And I'm sure you have one. But what are the strategies we could use on the daily to get these things done? And it comes with a checklist, and it's a simple PDF. And you can stick it on your refrigerator. It's succinct, but like there are phrases and tactics you'll keep in your mind. So anyway, that's that. But the other thing is I have a group called Action and Accountability. And it's every Monday morning for an hour, 11 to 12. And it's a group of women that sort of come in and out. It's on a monthly basis. People can try it for a week or two for nothing, not because I want to give it away, but because I want people who want to be in there. Like there's no point in having somebody sign up and then say, oh, this isn't what I thought. And it's a group of women, some entrepreneurs, some not. And we really talk about action, strategies, and accountability. And the group is tight, totally tight, because, we're together, and people can do it on a month-to-month basis. So I love that program. And it would be great for entrepreneurs who are feeling like they don't have the support they really want. And then the other thing I'm working on is an empty nester program where I gather 5 other female experts, and we do a 6-week program, and we do an hour each week, and each expert takes the hour and does an interactive activity with the audience, the Zoom audience. So I'm doing Finding Your Passion. One of the women is doing style, like creating a capsule wardrobe with 15 pieces. And we have a woman doing teaching us how to meditate. I mean, and we're all doing it on the Zoom. So there are 6 different experts, mindful meal planning, things like that. So I'm super, super excited about that. I did it this past winter. We had 70 women be part of it. So
oh, wow. Yeah.
I just started launching it yesterday. So that's coming up in October. So yeah, always lots of things. I run in-person retreats also. I'm doing one in Florida. That one's sold out. But, so if people want to keep in touch, I always have things coming up, sometimes free workshops, sometimes in person, mostly virtual. So very accessible to anybody.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I also like that. It's almost like a mastermind vibe, the accountability action thing. I like that. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for being on. Super great conversation. And I'm sure I will be talking to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening today. This was a great episode, and I'm sure you will appreciate the tips and insights from today. If you want to connect further with our guests, you can find the contact information, social media links, etc., any of the freebies in the show notes from today's episode. Please show some love to our guests and like, follow, and subscribe their content if you connected with them. And also don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. Also, if you drop a juicy review, that's always cool too.